All right, we are back. Built by Vitality podcast, the bootstrap version, because we don't have a candle.
It's okay. I'll get us another one.
You know, you find someone that you partner with and you think they can come through and pull this thing off, and you walk in here and there's no candle.
With COVID, I couldn't go to Yankee Candle and sniff everything. It wasn't allowed, so now I'm back in there.
I would imagine that you're not allowed anywhere in any store because of that. Okay, candleless, but before we get too far down the road, can we agree to disagree that we somewhat have a sponsor for the show?
Somewhat.
Like, technically, we're not getting money from Dr. Squatch.
No.
But
they're kind of our sponsor.
They're kind of our sponsor.
Yeah.
So kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, I would imagine when Joe Rogan landed his first sponsor, it was probably pretty big deal.
If you don't know what Dr. Squatch is, it's the amazing soap. It's
man, is it good?
It's way better than
gun to your head. What's your favorite? What's the favorite scent?
Oh man, Wood Barrel Bourbon.
Yeah, that's because of that. I would go Alpine Sage. Now I know you're thinking, how are these two dudes talking about soap? I get it. I'm with you.
He was totally against it until I had him try it.
I'm one of those guys. I'm like, I could care less what soap I use. And then Philip gave me a bar of this soap, and I have yet to use anything else. And now I have about 180 bars of it down at the Grind that we sell. I know that's an interesting partnership for the Grind, Vitality Media, and soap, but just work with me on it. So
I even got the big guy using lotion.
Let's not go too far.
Actually, it's probably still full.
Yeah, it's still
I just gave it to you.
Yep. So you can tell me and Philip have an interesting relationship, and that's probably why we do, I was going to say so well, but I don't know
if we do well or not.
I don't know if we do well or not. But anyway, that is a segue into this podcast, which is going to talk about communication. And we're going to talk about some mistakes that we make as business owners, as well as some things that we can do to rectify some of these issues. I think we've said it before. Communication is, that's kind of the holy grail of being an entrepreneur. If you cannot communicate well, you're going to struggle. And there's some people that probably should never be in a customer-facing job, and that's okay. Yeah. You know, you should be behind a computer, stabbing at the keyboard and analyzing some graphs and charts, and I'm sure
some people
important.
Are built for that.
Yeah. Stanley Allen, who ran National Cash Register back in the 40s and 50s, had a quote. He said, this is over a half century ago, and I mean, maybe it's obvious, but when I read this, it was like, man, even a guy back in the 40s and 50s, before all of this technology, before all the social media, he had it figured out. He said, the most useful person in the world today, this is 1947, is the man or woman who knows how to get along with other people. It sounds so simple, but if you look around today, I would say that is exactly what I would consider being useful. If you can have people that can get along, that can communicate, that can build relationships, that is really hard to find. Mm-hmm. And this guy had it figured out in the 40s that was the problem, and that was the shortfall. Because if it wasn't a shortfall, he probably wouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
If everybody could get along with everybody, he wouldn't.
He'd never say that.
Yeah. And now you look at it, and we'll get into this a little bit later on, but the elephant in the room is, obviously we don't have interpersonal skills and the ability to have relationships and communicate because we aren't forced to do it anymore. It's no different. I make the same mistake. Instead of walking down to Philip's office, which is 18 feet away, I text him, or I'll say, hey, what are we going to do? And you lose, every time you do that, you lose a little bit of that ability to build that relationship. Luckily, me and you have the ability to work out together and build our relationship down in the gym floor. Which
you say luckily, I say unfortunately.
Yeah. whatever synonym you want to, not synonym, whatever pronoun you want to use there. I was really bad. English by far, the worst. Laura gets so mad at me. We literally had a class. It was probably 4 years ago where she came up and she taught me the whole thing about you and your and we and were and the whole thing.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
just because everything
It's terrible.
Yeah, I was really bad. So anyway, and I would call this emotional intelligence. We've referred to that before. Emotional intelligence, self-awareness is a big one we'll talk a little bit about today. But a lack of these is a large majority of what causes the problems that we deal with as business owners every day. Tact, I would lump that into there. The bottom line is, the better we are at reading people and reading situations, the better we're going to do with solving some of these problems and communicating with other people. And we've all seen it before where someone just doesn't have the self-awareness to walk into a conversation or a situation and doesn't understand who he's talking to, doesn't understand the environment, and just misreads the whole thing. And maybe someone's in a hurry. We've all had that. My dad's a great one. If you call my dad between about 5 and 6:30, he's watching the news. And he's the only guy I know that has the most state-of-the-art electronic system on the planet, but he knows nothing about it. He can't run it. He can't work it. He can't operate it. So he watches everything live. And I'm like, Dad, when I call, you just got to press the pause button. It'll stop it.
Yeah.
And then you can fast forward through the commercials when you get 15 minutes ahead. Oh, I don't know. I'm just going to watch it. So what you get is you get him, he'll put you on speakerphone, and he'll be doing 15 different things at the same time. You're trying to ask him some questions, and you ask him something. He's like, yep. And it's all a big joke now. Me and my brothers will be like, Capper's watching. Yeah. Capper's got the news on. And, if you can read that early, then you're like, hey, Pop, I'll give you a call. I'll call you back, you know. But there's a lot of people that just don't have the ability to understand that. That's a really obvious one. But you walk in, if someone's busy and not making eye contact with you, or they're not engaging in the conversation, you need to be able to pull the reins back and say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna save this for another day.
Yeah.
And I think we get ourselves in trouble because we're not good at reading those situations and reading people. And which leads me to the first problem that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, including me, has dealt with in the past, where you feel like you have to win every conversation. You have to win, not every, I don't want to say they're arguments that you have, but they're situations that come up in your business that, if handled incorrectly, they'll really create some spider webs into different things. And that could be membership issues. It could be drama with other members. It could whatever. And I think that we're wired in a way as business owners to feel like when we know we're right, we have to win that argument. And you've said some things in the past about when someone has a bad experience, how does that usually go versus when you have a good experience?
They'll tell like 10, 15, 20 people, but if they have a good experience, they might maybe tell one or two, if that. Yeah.
And in every one of these situations that you have, it requires some type of communication, whether that's between you and your team or you and your client, whatever that is. And it's within these conversations that these small mistakes, this inability to concede will really cause some issues. And it's even harder when you know you're right. There's been so many times when we've sat down and we've said, okay, here's the issue. I know we're right in this case. We're on the right side of it.
Yeah.
But if we take this hard line, this hard stand on it, what's the result gonna be? We're probably gonna alienate some people. We're probably gonna make some people upset. We're probably gonna have some people leave that are gonna be unhappy with us. And like you said, when that happens, boom, now all of a sudden
Tell everybody.
they tell everybody. And this is the whole idea behind this cancel culture nonsense. You got to be careful, because the mob will get a hold of you and start to try and, they can
Try to take you out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you look at in the gym world, this could be a lot of, like, someone cancels their membership, or they've signed something that says, hey, I want to cancel membership. I don't want to give you the 30 days notice or 60 days notice, or someone might have a 6-month contract, or someone might have this, that, whatever. And the issue becomes it's harder for you to try and manage that situation in a way that everybody can walk away with and be somewhat content.
Yeah.
You don't need to roll over. No. But you don't need to. There was a guy here that, he left the gym and was pretty disrespectful, on his way out. Said he had some passive aggressive emails, and if you don't have that, the old Steve, the 11 years ago, I would have got so frustrated with that. I would have felt like I had to, win that little piece of it, because they just pushed me a little bit too far. They pushed Laura a little too far, but now I look back and it's like, man, what do we win by doing that? All we're going to do is alienate so many more people. Mm-hmm. And I think the emotional intelligence part of this is probably where most other business owners are going to struggle, because they realize how far they've come and how much they've had to sacrifice to get to where they are. And they take it as a personal attack when someone kind of does something that they don't think is right. And I think it's harder for those types of people to swallow that down and kind of appease that. So, that individual, we decided, you know what, let's just take the high road. We decided we were going to let him get out of his contract and let it go. And it stung. Like it bothered me for a week or so. And it's one of those things that I think if you can look at the big picture, you're going to be okay, but it's hard to do that. And the other thing, it took me a long time to get to that point. It took me a long time to figure out how to really manage some of those situations. I mean, you look at whatever profession it is that you're in, the media profession, social media, whatever occupation someone has, I mean, there's got to be a learning curve that we have to understand that mistakes are going to be made, but at some point we have to learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that the learning curve that you had, if we look back to pre-pandemic and how you edited pictures, how you uploaded your content, what your battle rhythm was, I would imagine is quite a bit different than what it is now.
Oh, it's way better. Way different.
Yeah.
But I had to learn that.
You had to make those mistakes.
Yes.
And it's easy to say, it's easy to do this thing where back in the old days, I just say, hey, it's my gym. This is how we're going to do it. And that's it. But when you do that, it's almost a laziness, because it requires so much more work to try and communicate effectively and again, take that high road. That means you got to probably meet with someone and sit down and talk to them. You got to send them a follow-up email. You got to make sure that you leave things in a way. And if you do that enough times, then you can patch some of those things up, and you make so many mistakes. And I think that's where John Maxwell talks about in his book. He says, he quotes a poet, T.S. Eliot, and he says, half of the harm that is done in the world is due to people who want to feel important. They don't mean to do harm. They're absorbed in the endless struggle to think well of themselves. And I would say that the most of the people that business owners deal with kind of have that complex. I mean, you look around at social media. What is the goal of Instagram? The goal of Instagram is to make people believe that you have this magical life of rainbows and unicorns. And all those struggles that you have, they don't have that. So they want you to follow them because they have this life that,
And you want to try to do that same thing.
Yeah. And I think if you can keep this in mind when you deal with these situations, it'll put things in perspective. A lot of the situations we find ourselves in are solved with emotional intelligence, but like we talked about, they're solved with our experience from our mistakes. And if we can understand that a lot of the times that we're going to deal with our clients or our vendors or whatever it might, whoever you deal with in your occupation, they probably haven't had as much experience, haven't had the opportunity to make as many mistakes as you have. Well, now all of a sudden it starts to make sense. If you are supposed to be the one that has the emotional intelligence from your experience, then you have to be the one that leads that conversation. You have to be the one that takes the high road, that exercises the maturity. And, because I'll tell you, I can think of 8 to 10 instances where I let my emotions get the best of me, and I burned bridges that I probably shouldn't have burned. Now, luckily, I learned that lesson early on, but man, I mean, we did it. We made these mistakes, and I don't know if you could develop this without making those mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, you think someone just has the ability to be that emotionally intelligent, like that mature?
If they do, it's really rare. But most of them, like, maybe they learned it a lot earlier than you did, maybe when they were really, really young, and then when they got older, it didn't affect them as much.
My dad used to always tell me, he said, don't fall on your sword over something that doesn't matter. And it stuck with me because when you draw a line in the sand, it better be over something that's pretty serious. And I found myself back in the early days drawing a line in the sand over the dumbest things. Like, I'm going to take a hard line and I'm not going to get pushed around by this. And maybe it's something stupid like, someone bought a bag of protein, they brought it back, and I didn't want to take it back or something. I don't know. But you're talking about a $32 bag of protein,
yeah.
And you're gonna burn a relationship with someone by not taking it back and just eating that.
Yeah.
And it's just it's funny that
literally I just ate the protein.
Yeah. Now I just give it to you.
No,
And it's just one of those things where in the gym world, I guarantee you we can write down on a piece of paper 10 different times that we handled something incorrectly and it blew back into something much bigger. Because the reality is there's some drama in the fitness world because, again, you're dealing with people that are type A usually. They're motivated, they're outgoing, they're maybe a little bit outspoken, and they're not afraid to voice their opinions. And as long as you can handle that in a way where you don't take everything personal, then you're going to be okay. And I think, again, if we lived in a time to where everything was face to face, some of these things would never come about. Some of these issues would never come about.
You see the UFC post? I forgot the guy's name. UFC fighter. He's a commentator now. Reddish hair.
Yeah.
He announced his early retirement or his retirement the other day. Somebody on Twitter called him out. Said, "Yeah, it's probably best you stick to commentating because you suck at fighting or whatever." And he responded back. He said, "Well, if you see me out in public, would you say that to my face?" He's like, "Nope, because you kicked my butt. That's why I said it on Twitter." Like he's like, "Well, at least you're honest."
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't say that to him at face to face.
Yeah.
You don't do that.
There's a lot of people that that think they're tougher than they are because they're hiding behind their little phone. But that causes problems, and we can't interpret how a text is read or how an email is read. And I was just talking to Brent the other day. Brent runs our EvoFit program, and he gets emails all the time, and it's a challenge sometimes because you can read an email in a way that isn't the way it was written, but that the way you're going to read it could be how good of a day you're having, how bad of a day you're having. How many other emails did you just get? One that was a negative email, and then all of a sudden, boom, you got this one that was kind of a tweener. You couldn't really tell, so you attributed like a negative connotation to it. And if you're not careful, that will lead you into all kinds of rabbit holes that you don't want to go into. And I think that, again, I'm talking about the gym world, but the same thing can be said in any occupation where the majority of what we do is from emails or texts.
I had a really bad boss one time, but he didn't understand how I wrote the email. He was having a really bad day, and he was about 3 or 4 buildings down from where I was at in my office. He came all the way down, 4 buildings down, and I'm talking about raised, yelled, cursed, everything at me, because he thought the email that I responded back to him was very, I don't know, sarcastic, demeaning. I was like, well, no.
Yeah.
And I kind of said what I typed out in the email, and he was like, he realized he was just having a bad day and he read it wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just because of an email, like how he took it.
And that's a perfect example. You know, you look at that and you say, okay, I used to have, I would like to say that my temper has gotten much better. I don't think have you ever seen me lose my temper? Maybe. Wow.
Yeah.
You have? Once or twice?
Yeah.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago on me. It was okay.
Oh, man.
Nate told me a story one time. It's really good.
What
He said Nate was like, his temper's gotten a lot better. Nate told me a really good story.
What story did he tell you?
He said he come in, I think it was this gym, right when you haven't been open too long. He said that you had came in one morning, and I think you were going to clean the floor, you were going to do something, and you tried to take the mop. You had the mop in the bucket, and you tried to go over the little lip going out here into the gym, and it dumped over. He said you took the actual bucket, or you took something and you just chunked that thing and went to pieces everywhere.
No.
Or something. It dumped over on the
so
lip.
I came in to clean. I was in a pretty good mood. Had some oldies playing. It was one of those mornings, and I pulled the mop bucket, just like you said. I had it filled to the brim, and it spilled. And I specifically remember I didn't do anything. I took a deep breath and said, you know what? I'm just going to go at the machine, and I'll
suck the water up.
I'll suck the water up. Well, why am I going to get upset? And I had picked it back up, and when I picked it back up, somehow the mop fell, and it kind of hit me like in the back of the. It kind of just like barely just hit me in the back of the ear, and it just hurt.
Kind of like the PVC pipe hit my jam thumb yesterday. Yeah.
So at that point, I was like, "Gosh darn it, man." I said, I'm just not going to get mad. And I counted like 3 in my head, and I picked that bucket up and just tossed it. And it hit the upright and shattered into 1,000 small pieces. And then I was like, you know what?
Now you gotta clean it
this is
all
my
up.
lesson. This is why you don't lose your temper. But
Nate told me about that a while back.
Yeah. So, I have gotten better. And I think that when you look at people in a leadership role, you cannot have that short fuse where hopefully when you ask someone, hey, when's the last time I lost my temper? You're talking 3, 4, 5 years ago. It can't be, oh man, 3 days ago. You know, and that's where we have to do better as entrepreneurs. That to me is the first sign of someone that doesn't have that emotional intelligence factor, is when you lose your temper with your employees or with anybody. If anybody's around you to lose your temper, you're literally just, your respect meter is just coming down.
I lose my temper a lot.
No, I haven't seen you lose your temper that much.
Not with work.
Oh.
It's usually, and I know what it is, it's food and people involving my food. Like if I go get something to eat and like the drive there and back, it's usually around food, and I freak out. And I don't know how to stop it, because most of the time I'll meal prep. I have stuff at the house, but if I want to go grab something on a Saturday night or a Sunday, whatever, something happens. And I turn into like this little short man syndrome Hulk. I rage for the food part and the drive there.
Isn't
and
it
back.
weird how people have different triggers?
We
all have it.
Yeah.
And
And
your
I
trigger
know it is, and I can feel it coming. Like the side of my neck starts to tingle, and I'm like, "Yep, it's happening."
My left ear gets hot. If you ever see my left ear get red and hot, you know it's coming.
I know JB at North Lake, when he gets mad, it looks like he got a facelift. His skin gets real tight. It starts to get like it's pulled back. I'm like, his skin's getting tight. Leave him alone.
And it's just one of those things where, I think we just have to figure out. We figure it out. We figure out how to deal with that and put ourselves in situations to where we can try and improve that. But I think, and John Maxwell goes on, and man, I'll tell you, I've read a lot of books, and John Maxwell is one of those guys that I really enjoy reading. And Andy Williamson gave me this book called Winning with People. And he says the difference between who you are today and who you will be in 5 years is the people you spend time with and the books you read. And I'm sure you can modify that and say the books you read or the podcasts you listen to, whatever knowledge that you're seeking. That's what he's talking about. That's what he's referring to.
Whatever you spend your most time on.
Yeah,
right,
and it needs
with.
to be some type of growth. And I think that is the lack of mentorship. That's what that made me think about is the people we spend time with. Some of those have to be mentors. Some of those have to be people that are challenging the status quo of what we're trying to do. And now what's happening is we're looking to this social media thing because we can find blind loyalty. In my opinion, doesn't matter or doesn't count for anything, doesn't mean anything. But I would say that's how we've found ourselves in some of these issues that we have, is because people are going on to Instagram, posting kind of ridiculous things, and they're getting this affirmation back from people they have no idea. These could be people that are terrible human beings that you want nothing to do with, but what's happening, because they are affirming your belief, now you're like, okay, well, hey, I'm part of this big group, and it's not just me, it's everybody feels this way.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be careful because, connections are hard. They're hard to build. And anytime that you can make a connection, whether it be on TikTok, my 13-year-old daughter, I don't even want to get into TikTok because it's the bane of my existence.
I started a TikTok.
I bet you did. And you're going to be spying on, Ray, whatever. I don't even want to say her name on here, her TikTok name. But anyway, she's like, oh yeah, I've got a private account and it's just my friends that are on here. I said, oh, cool. She's got like 1,190 friends. I said, Reagan, no, that's impossible. You don't have that many friends. Like, I'm sure you're a nice person. If you lined
all them up, you don't know all their names or nothing.
No, I think I have like 7 friends.
And I'm not even one of them.
You're not even one of them.
I know.
But what's happening, mentors are nearly impossible to find these days because I think no one's looking for them. No one wants to find somebody that's going to challenge them, because we can go find somebody that's going to reaffirm everything we say, agree with us, tell us how great we are, and nobody. And because being a mentor, I would imagine is a very challenging thing, because you're going to have to talk to successful people and challenge them, challenge their ideas, challenge their thought process. And when we have this gap, and I'll be the first to tell you, I didn't have a ton of mentors when I first started the Vitality, because I was so stubborn. I didn't want to do it someone else's way. Now, I had business mentors that helped me a ton on the business side, but when it came to the gym side, I never really worked with anybody that said, hey, here's how I set my gym up. Here's how we did our personal training. Here's how we did this. And I don't know, maybe that stunted the growth in the beginning. Maybe I had such blind luck of the timing was right, and we grew so fast that it reinforced my belief that I didn't need that mentorship and the gym's part of it. But I think now people aren't getting any mentorship. Like, I still had people that would help me. I had great guys that would help me figure out my finances, figure out how to set things up in the business. They would look at, when we moved in this building, and I had tenants, and I had operating agreements with my tenants and my partners. I had people that looked at all that stuff, and they'd give me their feedback, whether I liked it or not. And I think when you don't have that, you're seeing this gap in the small business world, and that gap is professionalism. No one's there to say, hey, man, this is kind of a weird setup you got. I had this experience with one of your staff. I had this experience with when I came in and took a yoga class or a CrossFit class, or maybe I run a chiropractic studio, and whatever it might be, whatever business you're in, if you don't have someone that can look at it from the 10,000 foot view, that doesn't have any skin in the game and say, hey man, here's where I think you're kind of making a mistake, man, you're missing it, because you're not going to see those obstacles that are coming until they're right there and they're too late. You can't move. It's like the Titanic, man. You can see that big iceberg, but you better see it far enough where you can correct course, or it don't matter. If you're 50 feet away and you see
turn
it,
that fast
cool,
enough.
you're done. It's still going to hit you. And, what this is leading to, another area is like what I would call hobby entrepreneurs. Hobby entrepreneurs to me are people that aren't 100% vested in their business. They've got a multitude of irons in the fire, and they just can't really focus on one. So they kind of have somewhat of a successful business, but they're not all in. They're not bought in, and they're trying to wait until they know they're going to make it before they commit. And to me, some people would say, "Oh, that's smart." I disagree 100%. You won't ever make it unless you're 100% bought into what it is you're doing, until you believe that there is no other option but to succeed in that. And, I sign up for any small business that I have ever used or bought from or whatever. Everybody has their newsletters they send out. I always sign up for those I delete 99% of them, but sometimes I'll skim through them. And man, I saw one the other day, and it blew my mind. It talked about how the owners have decided that, we want to make sure that we take some time and do some self-reflecting, and we're going to close down for 8, 9, 10 days or something, and the business is going to be closed. And I see that, and that is where that company, that business needs a mentor to say, hey, newsflash, the pandemic has been here for the last 15 months, and now we're finally opening things back up. It might not be the smartest thing in the world to close down midsummer.
Yeah.
In the heart of
to self-reflect.
And I think that's a very dangerous thing to get in, because that tells me that there is nobody with their finger on top of that.
Yeah.
No one's saying, hey, guys, I don't think that makes sense. You need to be careful about that. I mean, can you imagine Vitality?
Or they might have a mentor and it's just really bad.
Yeah. Well,
they told them it's a good idea.
Well, here's the thing.
But I doubt it.
But that's the social media problem, because now these mentors can pay for all their followers, pay for all this stuff, and they look like they know what they're doing, but no one's asking them, hey, what business have you ran? Can you imagine having a mentor as an entrepreneur, and someone says, "Oh, I've never ran a business myself." I'm sorry, what?
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of times people will get on Instagram or TikTok. Usually it's Instagram is what I've seen it on, and somebody will have 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever, 1,000 followers. It's very simple or very easy to know if those are real or not. You start clicking on their posts and look at them, see how many likes or comments they got. If they got 50,000 followers and you click on there and the post has 1,000 likes or 400, they got 6 comments, they don't have that many followers. Just for numbers, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. So you can look at that stuff, but people will buy into it. They'll buy their program. They'll do whatever, take their advice, and really they just used an app and got free robot follower, like bots to follow them.
Yeah.
It's not real.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when people are desperate, looking for a mentor, looking for that silver bullet, a mentor is not going to have an immediate impact on your business. It's just not. It's going to be a long-term play where they can start to make some big positional moves with how you're structured to kind of push you in a direction that makes sense. And I think the other way you can tell that there's not a lot of mentorship going around and there's an experience gap is with your staff. You can look at a staff and that when you walk through the doors of somewhere and you have a great experience, someone is there managing those employees. Someone's there doing some quality control, saying, hey, I came in, and I had such a great experience. Because the reality is, in the people business world, those are hard to find, and you're going to go through some attrition. And I'll tell you what I believe, and this is maybe off topic, but the pandemic is going to expose some people and some businesses like never before. You have these employees that are now given a little bit more power because you've had the mask mandate. And now they're given this authority over people to where they can tell you to do, hey, pull your mask up. Hey, put a mask on. Pull it over your nose. Yeah. And speak in a way that in the service industry is never been done before.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people, whether I don't care, my opinion on it doesn't matter as far as wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. I will tell you that if I am in any business and someone says, hey, will you put a mask on, I'm going to put a mask on. I'm not going to be the guy that, whether I believe in it or not, I'm not going to
fight it.
I'm not going to fight it.
The same.
But I can't tell you how many times I've witnessed people speaking in ways that in the service industry, I mean, it blows your mind. And now that this is on the back end and these mask mandates are pulling off, wait until that happens and wait until these employees speak to customers that way, with no more authority over what they can do. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you that these businesses are going to have a big time problem. That's why I had such an awesome time when we interviewed Chick-fil-A and got to experience how he handles all of his staff. And you can tell, I mean, I guarantee you, if we asked him if he had some mentors along the way, he would say yes, because the way he operates, man, it's incredible, and his staff are a direct reflection of that. Can you imagine going to Chick-fil-A and having people be rude to you? It would be the weirdest thing in the world because you're so accustomed to their.
I still go there because the food's so good.
Well, you're going to find that's how people make change, is they change it with their wallet. And I can promise you there's going to be some businesses, and I'm not talking about just restaurants. I'm talking about
anywhere.
I've had it happen in
you go to the mall. Like anything.
It's wild, and that just shows me that there's going to be a reckoning, and there's going to be some attrition, because the type of people that can make it through a pandemic style is going to be different than the type of people that can make it through a non-pandemic style, and you're going to see this huge attrition coming. And as we see, there's a lot of businesses hurting to find employees, so that pool of employees is very small right now. So people are having to hire people that maybe aren't as qualified, and we're going to start to see that, and you're going to start to see coming out of this in the summertime the results of that. So,
and more of me raging when I don't have food.
Exactly, you're in
especially when they say something to me.
So I think when we look at this from a communication perspective, everything can circle back to emotional intelligence and recognizing where our shortfalls are, and whether we write it down and say, hey, here's what I'm going to work on this week or this month. I'm going to work on, when I go out to eat, I'm going to work on 50% of the time not losing my temper. And I'm just going to check it off. Did I lose my temper today? Yep, I did. At the end of the month, hopefully you got more no's than yeses, and you just continue to work through that. Everybody's going to have their own set of circumstances they have to work through. But if we're not self-aware enough to realize what those are, that's where we have a problem. When you think you don't have any more growth in the emotional intelligence arena, you're in big time problem.
Yeah.
You're in a big time battle with yourself, and you're not going to be able to get through that. So I'm telling you, focus on fixing that. I'm telling you to, I'm not telling you to go out and find a mentor. I'm just telling you to go find someone that will shoot you straight and that say, hey, you know what? Call in and tell me what your experience is like, or go into my store and tell me what your experience is like. I mean, how many times when I went out on vacation to, I don't even know where I was at. I went to a row house. I was up there. I was up there for a volleyball tournament in Atlanta. And in Atlanta, I went to this row house. And it's a really cool concept. It was all rowing, and it had a really awesome setup. And I walked in, I introduced myself, didn't tell him I owned a gym or whatever. And it was the nicest guy. We sat down, he talked for like 15, 20 minutes. I told him I was just visiting and just wanted to see his operation type of deal. And but he took 15 minutes, he showed me around. It was awesome. Get out there and what I did was I sent him an email and I was done and said, hey, man, I really appreciate the time you took. This was awesome. That's, to me, I would even count that. I'm not saying I'm a mentor by any stretch of the imagination, but when someone comes in and experiences your service and gives you that type of feedback, then to me, that's just as valuable as anybody else coming and evaluating what you're doing. You're
what are
doing
those things
something
called?
right.
The people get paid to do it. Those shoppers, the mystery shoppers.
Oh, I don't know what they're called. That's a great idea.
You ever seen that?
No.
You never heard of that?
No.
It's an actual thing. There's people that get paid to be mystery shoppers for companies, these big corporations that will hire random folks like me, you, whatever, and we go into a REI or say a Best Buy, and they tell us, hey, go in there, shop for a TV, buy the TV, or whatever it is, and you get paid, say, $15, $20, $25 an hour, and you give them feedback on how the experience was. There's an actual thing, and some of the corporations actually do that, but they use like random people to do it.
That's brilliant. I mean, that's to me, again, that would fall under that mentorship category where, again, I'm not telling you to go out and find a mentor and pay a mentor. I'm just saying that somebody has to be able to give you some honest feedback, because the odds are if my name is on Philip's check, he's probably not going to be as honest. And I'm not saying that he's going to sugarcoat it, but I'm saying that human nature is if you're looking for that honest feedback from the people that you employ, you're probably not going to find it. You're probably going to find people that are loyal. What's that?
Unless it's Laura.
Yeah.
She'll tell you. She don't care if you sign it or not.
She'll tell me. Yeah. Yeah. So I hope this helps. We went over a couple different things, but this has just been something that I've been thinking about, and I probably could go into detail about the experience that I had with some of the staff that in some of these places, but I'll refrain from that because my ears will start to get hot. And
next episode, Steve's going to have his TikTok.
Yeah, we'll talk about the TikTok. Actually, our next episode, we're going to talk about this blood glucose monitor. One of the coolest things I've done in a long time is had a continuous glucose monitor to talk about food and to look at how my body reacts to certain carbohydrates. It's really interesting. So
I'll tell you why I don't have one. I'll tell him right now.
Why?
Because I don't have any carbs.
Yeah.
And that's Steve's fault.
Philip's on a modified keto plan where Jess has given him way more leeway than I ever
here
got.
Here we go.
So
I'm looking forward to next week. It's my day of carbs.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. You can find this on YouTube, our Vitality Fitness YouTube channel, and on iTunes.
Or Spotify.
And Spotify.
Yep, we're catching up to Joe Rogan.
In the meantime, do yourself a favor. Go pick up an Alpine Sage bar of soap at the Grind.
Or Bay Rum. God, any of them. They're really good.
Yep. All right. There's our plug. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day.